capturing a glimpse of God's handiwork. In an amazing photo she later posted online. We'll take a closer look at it. You can see the clouds coming together.
Is an army of angels appearing over Jerusalem, heralding the return of Jesus?
Oh, biblically accurate angel.
Ooh, biblically accurate angel.
Have you seen what a biblically accurate
Yes.
angel?
Last night, something unbelievable illuminated the skies over the holy city, captured on video and witnessed by hundreds. According to eyewitnesses, these weren't fireworks or drones, but rather unexplainable celestial manifestations that included glowing crosses suspended in the sky. Furthermore, the spectacle became even more surreal when a pure white dove reportedly ascended and gently landed on a figure's shoulder. How true is that? And more importantly, what does it mean? In this video, we'll be finding out soon. Come along! Eyewitnesses report angelic army over Jerusalem. As the sun dipped behind the ancient walls of Jerusalem and the night sky stretched wide above the city, something truly astonishing unfolded that would leave many people grasping for words. According to a growing number of residents and tourists, the heavens above the sacred city were not just dark and starry that evening, they were alive. Eyewitnesses, some still trembling from the experience, have described what they say looked like an army of angels descending slowly and silently above Jerusalem. One can only imagine the chill that must have raced down their spines, the way time must have felt like it slowed down as they watched this extraordinary sight unfold before their eyes. But was it real? Was it a divine message or something else entirely? They said it looked like heaven opened up right above the city. Others said it was just light tricks. But what really happened over Jerusalem? And could it really mean Jesus is returning? You'll want to stick around until the end to find out. Reports began to pour in from all corners of the city, each echoing a similar narrative. People claimed to have seen glowing humanoid figures in the sky, figures that didn't look like shadows or illusions or drones doing tricks. These shapes had form, purpose, and presence. One of the most talked about features was a central figure that many said bore an eerie resemblance to the traditional images of Jesus Christ. Shoulder-length hair, a thick beard, and eyes that, as one woman put it, felt like they were looking into my soul. Doesn't that make you wonder? How could so many people describe the same vision with such chilling accuracy? A local man, who was out walking his dog when it all began, recounted how the very atmosphere shifted. The wind stopped. I didn't hear anything. It was like the earth was holding its breath, he said. Videos soon began surfacing online, showing clusters of light gliding across the sky, not darting or flickering like planes or drones, but moving with synchronized grace, like a formation. They weaved in patterns no one could explain, and none of them made a sound. It didn't look like anything man-made. In fact, several people who have spent years studying aircraft and astronomy have said openly that they can't explain what they saw. And then there was the formation itself, precise, organized, and absolutely mesmerizing. These weren't floating blobs of light. They were figures, tall ones, dressed in what onlookers described as robes that shimmered like silver caught in candlelight. They didn't hover in chaos. They stood like soldiers, aligned in rows, as if they were waiting for a signal. Isn't that hauntingly beautiful? Or is it terrifying? Maybe it's both. But it wasn't just their appearance that stunned people, it was what happened next. In more than a dozen separate accounts, people spoke of a dove, seemingly from nowhere, flying in soft circles around the central figure before landing gently on his shoulder. It's the kind of thing you'd expect in a painting or dream, not in the skies over a modern city filled with cars and sirens and cell towers. And yet, it happened, or so the witnesses insist. There's something particularly intriguing about the emotional aftermath of it all. People didn't just see this event, they felt it deeply. Some said they broke down in tears without understanding why. Others dropped to their knees in prayer, trembling with a mix of joy and fear. One man, who admitted he never believed in anything spiritual before, reportedly whispered, "Now I believe," over and over again. Can a moment like that really change a person's entire worldview? Still, not everyone was swept up in the awe. A few stood there, silent and stunned, unsure whether to trust what their eyes had seen. One elderly woman, clasping her rosary, said, "What if it's a test? What if it's not what we think it is?" That unease has sparked intense discussions among religious leaders and theologians across the globe. Some are calling it a sign of prophecy fulfilled, perhaps even the long-awaited return of Christ. Others are more cautious, suggesting it could be a grand deception, the kind warned about in ancient scriptures. Could both be right? As the days go by, the people of Jerusalem are trying to make sense of what they experienced. Churches are fuller than they've been in years. Strangers are stopping each other in the street to compare notes and share their feelings. Even those who didn't witness it firsthand say something has shifted in the air, like the city is holding its breath, waiting for whatever comes next. In a time when doubt often outweighs faith and people look down more than they look up, it's hard not to wonder, what exactly happened in the sky that night over Jerusalem? And more importantly, what does it mean? What does the Bible say about armies of heaven? Around the world, biblical scholars are leaning closer to their scrolls, their ancient manuscripts, and digital tools alike, trying to make sense of what seems to be unfolding before our eyes. Why, you ask? Because a growing number of reports, strange, vivid, and persistent, are surfacing, claiming that celestial armies have been seen above the city of Jerusalem. It almost sounds like something from a movie, doesn't it? And yet, within theological circles, this is no fantasy. This is prompting serious discussion, reflection, and renewed scrutiny of prophetic scripture that, until recently, many thought was purely symbolic or far in the future. They're asking, could these accounts really be what ancient texts were pointing to all along? Could it be that verses long debated in dusty lecture halls are now staring humanity in the face? Many scholars are revisiting familiar scriptures with fresh urgency, particularly passages from the book of Revelation, Zechariah, and Acts. One that's getting a lot of attention is Revelation 19:14, where John describes a dramatic, awe-inspiring scene of heavenly armies following Christ. According to the verse, they ride on white horses and are dressed in fine, clean white linen. Now, that image alone raises goosebumps for some. White linen has long symbolized righteousness, purity, and holiness. These armies, as many scholars agree, are not just made up of angels. The text hints that they may include the redeemed, the faithful, who have been called up to stand alongside divine forces. And then there's the original Hebrew word, pronounced tsevaot, often translated as hosts or armies. It's not a poetic flourish. It literally means an organized military force, God's host, battle-ready, heavenly in origin, and mentioned throughout the Bible as part of His mighty power. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time Scripture has described angels in military terms. On the contrary, there are plenty of references that paint angels not as cute little beings with wings and harps, but as warriors, standing in formation, commanded like an army, and taking part in divine battles that impact the earthly realm. So naturally, people are wondering, what if those who reported seeing mysterious formations or strange lights in the sky weren't hallucinating or exaggerating? What if those visions weren't so far-fetched? Digging deeper, scholars have also been focusing on Zechariah 14:4, a prophetic passage that describes an astonishing moment when, during a future climactic confrontation, the Lord's feet will stand on the Mount of Olives. That mountain, located just east of Jerusalem, will reportedly split in two, forming a great valley. What does this mean? Could a literal geological transformation be on the horizon? And more curiously, why the Mount of Olives? Why not anywhere else? Well, biblically, this place carries enormous significance. It's the very spot where Jesus is said to have ascended to heaven after his resurrection. According to Zechariah, when he returns, he won't be coming alone. All the holy ones with him, the scripture says. Then there's the powerful scene from Acts 1:11, where two angels appear just after Jesus' ascension and make a promise to his followers. This same Jesus, they say, who has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way you have seen him go. That short but profound sentence has reassured believers for generations. It's more than just comfort, it's a prophecy. The phrase, "this same Jesus," doesn't just serve as an identifier. It reinforces that his return will be consistent with who he was in life, merciful, powerful, and divine. That moment of ascension wasn't just the end of his earthly ministry. It was also the beginning of his reign in heaven, with the promise of a dramatic return still lingering in the air. What would you do if you looked up and saw what looked like an army of angels in the sky? That's exactly what people in Jerusalem are claiming. But is this a sign of the end times, or something else entirely? Stick around, because the truth might shock you. Are these signs of the second coming of Jesus? In recent months, something strange, maybe even divine, seems to be unfolding over the city of Jerusalem. People have been whispering, some with awe, others with urgency, about what they claim to have seen. Lights dancing across the sky, figures that resemble doves glowing against the night clouds, and formations so ethereal they've stirred deep biblical memories. Could these extraordinary sightings really mean what many believe they might?
A mysterious, gigantic ball of light descends in Jerusalem directly on top of the Temple Mount, and the locals believe it was an archangel.
That question has sent waves of curiosity, concern, and quiet hope rippling through Christian communities around the world. And with good reason. From living rooms to pulpits, people are asking the same thing in hushed tones. Are we seeing signs that match the ancient prophecies of Christ's return? It's a question that's more than just intriguing. It's deeply personal for many who've waited their whole lives believing he would come back, just as he promised. And now, with Jerusalem's sky seemingly playing host to mysterious celestial displays, that long-held expectation is being stirred afresh. Biblical experts and theologians are now revisiting familiar passages with new urgency, combing through Scripture to see if these modern happenings align with the prophetic blueprint laid out in texts like Revelation and the Gospels. In particular, scholars are paying close attention to the parallels between today's global events and the warnings Jesus gave in the Olivet Discourse, a sermon where he described what to expect before his second coming. There, he spoke of a string of hardships, false prophets leading many astray, nations rising against nations, widespread famine, disease, and even natural disasters. These weren't just arbitrary calamities. He referred to them as the beginning of sorrows, a phrase that suggests not just suffering, but a painful lead-up to something momentous, like the birth of something new. But let's pause and ask, haven't these things always happened? Wars, earthquakes, plagues, they're not exactly new. That's true. But theologians argue it's not the presence of these things that signals prophetic times, but the way they stack up. The frequency and intensity growing, like the rhythmic contractions of labor. Just as a mother knows that her baby's arrival is nearby, the increasing sharpness and timing of her contractions, so too, some believe, we're meant to recognize the signs of the times by how these events escalate. And by that measure, many would say things are escalating indeed. Now, Let's consider the doves. Why doves? Why light? Why clouds? To the modern eye, a dove might just be a bird, a light just a natural phenomenon, a cloud just vapor in the sky. But in Scripture, these symbols carry layers of meaning. Doves have shown up in moments of peace and divine communication, from Noah releasing one after the flood to the Spirit descending like a dove at Jesus' baptism. Light is used repeatedly in the Bible to signify God's presence, truth, and glory. And clouds? In almost every major moment involving God's manifestation, there are clouds. Think of Mount Sinai, or the Transfiguration, or the Ascension of Jesus. Even Revelation paints the return of Christ as a moment when He comes with the clouds, and every eye will see Him. So when these specific images start appearing over the city where He once walked, is it really that far-fetched for people to wonder if it's more than just weather? And then there's the Mount of Olives. That hill, humble as it might seem today, holds massive prophetic weight. According to Zechariah 14:4, when Christ returns, His feet will touch down on that very mountaintop, and when they do, it will split in two, forming a valley. If that sounds dramatic, it's because it is. The Mount of Olives isn't just a random place. It was the spot from which Jesus ascended into heaven. And according to Acts 1:11, it's also the spot to which He will return. The angels didn't mince words when they told the disciples, He will come back in the same way you saw Him go. So with lights hovering over that very location, and with reports of dove-like figures floating across the skyline, is it any wonder that some are connecting the dots? Did Jerusalem just witness something that's leaving people in awe and fear? The answers aren't as simple as you think. Stay tuned. The final part will leave you speechless. How should believers respond to these signs? As whispers of an angelic army appearing over Jerusalem continue to swirl across headlines and social media feeds, many believers around the world are left wondering, what exactly are we supposed to make of all this? Is this truly a prophetic sign? Could it mean that something monumental, something divine, is just around the corner? While skeptics raise their eyebrows and theorists dig deep into speculation, many Christians find themselves pausing, not out of fear or frenzy, but out of deep reflection. According to various religious scholars, whether or not these sightings point directly to the return of Christ isn't even the most important question right now. The real issue, they say, is one that hits much closer to home. What's the state of our hearts? Are we spiritually ready, not just for the end times, but for whatever tomorrow may bring? One teacher pointed out that while it's wise to have emergency kits packed and plans made for earthly survival, those things only go so far. After all, what good is a 72-hour supply of food and water if the soul is starving? Referencing the parable of the 10 virgins, they reminded listeners that when the moment of truth arrived, it wasn't the prepared ones who scrambled. It was the unready ones who found themselves locked out, not because they didn't know what to do, but because they hadn't actually done it. Isn't that a bit too close to home for comfort? We all like to think we'll get around to the serious stuff eventually, but what if eventually never comes? Many church leaders are now using this moment as a wake-up call, not a panic button, but a gentle yet urgent nudge. They're asking people to take a look inward and ask the big, sometimes uncomfortable questions. What would you do if you knew tomorrow was the day you met the Lord? Would you live differently today? Would you forgive that person you've been holding a grudge against? Would you pray more? Reach out more? Love harder? It's not about predicting the end. It's about preparing for any day to possibly be your last. That's not fear-mongering, it's perspective. As one preacher said, if our spiritual lamps have burned low The answer isn't guilt, it's action. Start filling them up today. Of course, with every report of a heavenly sign comes a flood of deception too. Because if there's one thing the Bible doesn't mince words about, it's that the last days will be marked by great confusion. False prophets, misleading signs, people claiming to be Christ himself. It's all there in black and white. One pastor put it plainly, "The enemy doesn't need to look scary to be dangerous. In fact, he usually looks pretty convincing." So how do believers protect themselves from being swept up in every headline or rumor? The answer lies in something simple, yet incredibly powerful: truth. Not just vague spiritual truth, but the kind you find in Scripture. Just like how bank tellers are trained to spot counterfeit bills by handling the real thing over and over, Christians are encouraged to spend time with the Word, so they'll instantly recognize when something feels off. In fact, a passage from 1 John was cited often in this conversation. The true test of any message, any messenger, is whether they acknowledge Jesus Christ as God in the flesh. It's not flashy signs or charismatic speeches that prove authenticity. It's that one solid truth. Doesn't it make you wonder just how easily people are fooled when they neglect that foundation? Then there's the practice of watchfulness. It's not just about scanning the skies for signs, it's about tending to the little things, guarding your heart against subtle compromises, staying focused on Jesus even when life feels ordinary. At the end of the day, all of this, the signs in the sky, the scriptures being revisited, the prayers, the questions, they point to something much more personal than headlines can capture. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.